Welcome to week 5 of the MTBA Draft League Pick'ems. Today, we have the full set. We have Marsh here with us today.
Hello, hello. Hope everyone is well.
And we have Rewt.
Hello.
Along with myself, Sir Jathor. And to start things off today, we're going to talk about the rankings and the record of the analysts here. So you'll see the records on the screen with you, but we have Marsh with a record of 25-3.
Let's go.
He has the crown right now. We have Rewt.
Hey, you know it.
Rewt with 17-11.
There we go.
Hey, you're over 500. That's
a good thing.
That's
a good thing.
still good.
So are the fans. Fans are ahead of you. Just saying.
We have myself with being 23-5, which is pretty good. It's pretty good. I not knowing anything about draft leagues. And then we have the fans who are you guys who are sitting at 20-8. And if you're wondering, oh, how do I get in this fans column? You can go down to the description, click the link, join our Discord, the MTBA Draft League, and you can interact with all of us here. You can take part in the pick'ems. You can talk to coaches. You can interact with each other. You can interact with the community.
Oh, definitely a lot of fun. Highly
yes, it is.
And while we're on the topic of standings and stuff, I was gone last week and I did watch the video back and it didn't have my my picks for that week, which I was really busy, the power outage, so on and so forth. But I got my picks in before I saw any of the matches. They just weren't in the video because I got them in directly after it was premiered. So that's my bad, but those did go into the standings that were just discussed.
That is true. And so before we talk about our picks, we're going to talk about the top Pokemon and we're going to talk about the standings of the MTBA as a whole. So now the top Pokemon of the league, that should be on your screen right now, we have in first place, we have the Victini on the Tennessee Tyrants with 13 kills, 4 games played, no deaths, and the KD ratio of 13.
Just to clarify, Jackson, this is post week 4, correct?
Yes, this is post week 4.
All right. Perfect.
And in second, we have Faramosa with the South Dakota SUNFLORAS. I don't know why I said San Diego. But with 10 kills, 1 death, 4 games played, KD rate of 9. Third place, we have Mega Absol with the Baltimore Braveries. With 10 kills, 3 deaths, 4 games played, and 7 KD. Fourth place, we have Mega Aerodactyl with the GDP, the Green Bay PIKACHUs. 9 kills, 4 deaths, 4 games played with a 5 KD. Now we're going to go over to Marsh to talk about the Sword standings.
So the Sword division is going to be definitely the most heavily contested between the two divisions, and that's because a lot of the teams are really good teams, and it's going to be a lot of whether the coaches can use the teams well. And so far, we see like Playtendo, the Baltimore Braveries, is in first right now with a record of 3-1 and a differential of 6. But that team is also tied with the Dragon team with Michael and GRG. I feel like they're both really good teams. They know how to play. And their first couple of weeks, they've shown that, and I feel like they're going to do even better. And then 2-Bit with the MSW is in third place, and Erico with the CSC is in fourth place right now, both standing at 2-2. The differential, as you can see, is pretty wide here, and I feel like 2-Bit is going to come into his stride here, in my opinion. I definitely feel like the Sword division in itself, moving into playoffs and looking at that with the top 3 moving forward for sure, it's going to be heavily contested between those 4, but mainly the top 3 that we have right now, in my opinion. Definitely a good division to watch out for.
Yeah, absolutely. And over in the Shield division, this one's a little bit more set in its ways. So we do have at the top a very strong top 3 here. 2 undefeated teams between the Fire-type team and Demo and the Flying-type team and Jacob. Both very much undefeated with 2 of the top differentials in the entire league. And then after that, you have the Bug-type team, Libs, and a third place record that would be tied for first place in the other division, which is kind of crazy to me. But after that, everything is just completely up for grabs. Pretty much anybody could still be in here. Even the winless ground type team here is still only a game away from being kind of in the middle with everybody else. This is pretty much anyone's uh, fourth spot to take, and it'll be really fun to see who can come out on top.
Definitely.
Definitely something to look out for. But now we are going to talk about the matchups in the last week of the first half of the season. So first up, we have the Baltimore Braveries, the Dark type team, versus the Bellevue BUIZELS, the Fairy type team. Now, Marsh, what did you get of this matchup?
So this matchup is definitely one of the more interesting. I wouldn't say controversial in my head, but interesting because the fairy type team does have the type advantage here this week. I do feel like the dark type team has the tools in the draft. I think especially the coach knows how to use them. But for the coach of the fairy team with Kolpa, he in the past weeks it's been shown that he might not have the most prep into his weeks, and I feel like he might just say, "Oh, I'm going to slap a bunch of fairy type stab on it, and then I'll probably win." I feel like the Greninja with Gunk Shot, HP Steel, or even HP Fire, if it wanted to get that resistance with Protean and like U-turn for like just having the tempo plays it can bring in. The Absol with Iron Tail and Stone Edge against a couple of the Mons especially. And there's a whole list between the Houndoom, the Bisharp, Hydreigon with Flash Cannon, Alolan Muck. He has a lot more options and more versatility than the Fairy team, who has the Azumarill, Diancie, and Magearna mainly for their hard counters and plays for the Dark type team. I have faith in Playtendo, so that's why I went with the Dark type team this week. Root, thoughts?
Yeah, I thought a lot of along very similar lines. This was one that I went back and forth a bunch on. I do think that Playtendo is clearly one of the most impressive coaches that we've had, just doing his thing throughout this entire season. I really like the way that he's been building the types of teams that he's been bringing, and obviously his draft is really strong. But for this week, I will be giving it to the fairy type team. I just think that the type advantage is going to be really difficult. And you brought up a lot of really good points about how most of these fairies do have some some kind of type mismatches with things like the Greninja, with things like the Lillimuck. But at the end of the day, in my mind, I think that the Magearna is going to be the difference maker here. I don't think that this Dark type team has a whole lot to kind of deal with the Greninja. And like you said, there are things like the Houndoom, like HP Fire, like Fire Punch on a Lillimuck that can kind of deal super effective damage. But in my head, I I think that this Fairy type team, all of the all that he would theoretically need to do is bring a moderately bulky weakness policy Magearna that can set up a shift gear, and I really don't see many ways that that just doesn't break through the dark type team on its own. Now, again, obviously it's super contingent on whether or not he brings that type of an aggressive set, and a lot of the things that he brings can kind of deal with the team. But that's the way that I see it. What do you think, Jackson?
I agree with Root. I'm going with the Bellevue BUIZELS, the fairy type team. I agree with you. I don't think that the Baltimore Braves have really anything for the Magierna, and that's why I chose them alongside what you were thinking. Um, but yeah, I think that the type advantage goes towards them, so I think that kind of just swings the pendulum in their favor a little bit. But that Magierna really helps stack the deck against the Baltimore Braves. And the Baltimore Braves have done a great job so far this season. He's a great battler. I expect to see Playtendo come up with some good strategies. But evidently, at the end of the day, I think the Bellevue BUIZELS will win. And it looks like the fans think the same way. It comes out pretty decisively, 9-4, that the Bellevue BUIZELS are going to win based on the fan vote. And so we're going on to the second. Sorry, go ahead.
Interrupt. One thing I wanted to say, like in response to you two, as you were saying, because I went first and such, but yes, the Magearna is a huge threat. Things like Signal Beam, Fluor Cannon, and Aura Sphere, but that's a lot of pressure to put on one Mon. And doing some Kelixin stuff, a Scarf Hydreigon with Flamethrower one-shots it. If you get a Scarf or something up on Bisharp before it gets the shift gear off, the Iron Head can do a lot. And there's a lot of things. I feel like just putting too much pressure on Magirna, and I'm gonna call it as I see it. I don't think Kolpa will even see the weakness policy set. I don't think he can build a strong enough team. But that's my personal opinions. Moving on to the second match.
And the second match, we have the Grand Rapid GROUYLES, the Dragon type team, versus the Solar Hills Samrots. Rewt, what do you think about this matchup?
Yeah, so this is an interesting matchup, right? Because obviously one team has an inherent type resistance, although he does also have a Tapu Koko, which can deal a lot of damage here. I ultimately think that this Dragon type team is going to win it. I think they're just one of the strongest teams coming out of the draft. Like we mentioned before, they were one of my top few teams coming out of the draft, and they've built and played in really interesting ways. They've been one of the most impressive builders for me personally, and I just think that they have more than enough interesting sets available to them to kind of go through this team. And they drafted two ground dragons, which I know a lot of people found strange coming out of the draft. But if there was any moment to kind of break them out and let them do whatever they can do, it's this moment right here. What do you think, Marsh?
I definitely agree. I also have the Dragon team going in, or like right now, and that is mainly because the Zygarde and the Garchomp can do a lot, especially with Zygarde having 1,000 arrows for the Zapdos, and a lot of the other Mons, like the Duraludon for the Tapu Koko. And something interesting about the Tapu Koko is it does not get play rough. The only Fairy type moves that it gets are Nature's Madness, Dazzling Gleam, and HP Fairy. So with that, there is no physical Fairy type move to use along with its other physical and its higher physical attack stat, and he'd really have to run a Calm Mind set. And other than that, the only other counters he has is Rotom Frost, which, as we've seen, a good rock type attack and other things with that can clean it out quickly before it can maybe even hit a Blizzard.
And Yachi Berry.
Yes, exactly. And the Ampharos with Dragon Pulse, the Mega Ampharos with Stab Dragon Pulse could do some work, but I feel like it's going to get outsped by a lot of things on the Dragon team, and it's also inherently weak to the Dragon Stab. So I feel like because of those reasons and a couple other coach decisions I've seen in past weeks, I feel like Michael and the Dragon team will be able to pull this out.
I agree with both of you. I'm going with the Grand Rapid GROUYLES. I agree with what Rewt said about the ground dragon types. But I also agree with what Marsh just ended with, the coaching. I'll be honest, I've seen a couple of problematic plays with the electric type Soul Samrots. The last couple of weeks, we've discussed this earlier together with the Rotom Frost versus the Rotom Mo. And I just think that the Grand Rapid GROUYLES, the coach has a better mind of what the team can do over the electric type team. So with what you guys have said earlier, I'm going with the Grand Rapid GROUYLES, and it looks like the fans again agree with us. Again, same score as the previous pick, 9-4. Does that surprise you guys in any way?
Not really. I feel like the Dragon team with that 3-1 standing compared to the Electric team with not such a good standing right now for record-wise is definitely a deterrent to pick the Electric team along with the type resistance. So I definitely feel like the fans made a good pick.
Yeah, they overall have a stronger type advantage here. They have a stronger record, arguably a stronger team. I think there's a lot of reason for the fans to want to go with their direction on this one.
Next up, the third matchup of the week, we have the South Dakota SUNFLORAS, the bug type team, versus the Tennessee Tyrants, the fire type team. Marsh, what do you have for this matchup?
This was probably, like, these two teams I can say are my favorite in this league, the fire team and the bug team. And I feel like they've definitely shined through the first couple of weeks here, even though the bug team did have a pretty bad loss last week. I feel like the bug type team has a lot of weapons that they brought or that they got in their draft that can handle a lot of what the fire type team can bring. Because as you look at the fire type roster, because Demo switched out the Colossal for the Flareon, not a single one of his Mons are neutral or resisted to the rock types. And some of them are even quad weak, such as the Mega Charizard. And a lot of the mons, such as Crustle with Stab, Stone Edge, and Mega Pinsir, who is really fast and outtakes a lot of Demo's team, also gets Stone Edge. And even HP Rock on Pheromosa, or Rock Slide on Gliscopod, or Roll Out even on Scorch, which has Flash Fire, can do a lot of work against this team that does not have many answers other than the Fire Stab. And with that Flash Fire Scorch, they're going to have to be very wary of it. However, I feel like the burn and the intimidate for Arcanine and Rotom Heat and Flareon that he's brought in the past weeks will shine through and be able to edge out a win here just barely, really, because of how strong fire type stab moves in Drought are and how much Demo has and can play around status and other situational things that the bug type team struggles with. So I went with the fire type team this week and Demo.
What about you, Rewt?
Yeah, for me, I also went with Demo and the fire type team. This was a really interesting matchup because I do think that things like a Shell Smash Crustle, I think really kind of at least made it fun to think about a lot of the different scenarios that can kind of go on in this matchup.
Mhm.
But ultimately, in my head, I think if the Crustle does get a Shell Smash up, then I think the Torkoal is just too darn naturally defensive that it can probably take even a +2 hit, get a Will-O-Wisp off, and then kind of even the playing field out quite a bit. And I think a lot of this can kind of be neutralized with Beast Boost on an HP Rock Pheromosa. I think that the point that you made about that is spot on. But there are a couple things here. I would be shocked. I would be absolutely shocked to not see at least one Charty Berry somewhere on this fire type team roster. But also things like Arcanine being able to come in at an extreme speed. We've seen that that's kind of Pheromosa's natural kryptonite here. And ultimately, I just think that this fire type team has a lot of, again, I keep saying this every week, but they have a lot of firepower, no pun intended. and I think they're going to get a lot of early momentum, and from there, it's just going to be a really kind of strong matchup. But obviously, I think any team here that gets some fast early momentum can really do a lot of things here. They're both very, very strong teams.
Is it really analyst video without making that firepower pun?
I know.
It's not.
But I agree with both of you. I am going with the Tennessee Tyrants, the fire type team. I agree with you guys about the Arcanine being kind of the kryptonite of Pheromosa. Although Marsh, you do bring up great points about the Center Scorch and Rollout and Flash Fire, but I think that I think that Demo's team just kind of carries the win here. He's been on a roll the last 4 weeks. He's found his stride. He's found what makes this team work, and I think he vibes with this team. Oh my god.
Like I've said in the past couple weeks, I think he's definitely playing towards his strength, and he really has kind of found how he likes to build with this team, and he's found his strengths with it.
But
I would want to make a point on the stride that he's been on. He has had really decisive wins these last 4 weeks. But if you look at the matchups he's had, the strengths of those teams haven't been the best with the Psychic team and Erico, the ground team, even though it is a type of disadvantage and stuff. The team wasn't built that strong as the fire type team even. And like the fighting and steel teams have also been in the bottom of the league this entire time. So this week and next week with the Dragon team are going to be his biggest tests, and it will definitely point to see if he can stay on top of this league.
That is
absolutely
so true. And it looks like the fans agree with us. They agree with us overwhelmingly 11-3 that the Tennessee Tyrants are going to win over the South Dakota SUNFLORAS. And the fourth match we have is the Mount Silver Weaviles, the Ghost type team, versus the PS2 Bolt Strike, the Ground type team. Rewt, what do you have for this match?
Yeah, so this was a really interesting matchup for me. For me, I just went straight up with the Ghost type team with 2-Bit and his Mount Silver Weaviles. I honestly just think it's the stronger team in this matchup. I think it was one of the strongest drafts for me coming out of the draft, and I know 2-Bit hasn't had has kind of had an above average season, whereas his draft might have dictated a strongly above average season. But I do think that he does have a lot of the tools that he needs to win this. I think he's also been kind of getting into a groove with his team. I think just seeing kind of Mega Sableye kind of near the top of these KO leaderboards has really indicated that he's found like some sort of a stride with his team. I think, like I said, he has a lot of firepower. He has um a lot of strength with his team, and ultimately, um, for whatever reason, this ground type team just has not had the strongest season up to date. I don't think they really kind of found their groove in building and kind of how to play with this team. And yeah, I just have to give it to the stronger, more confident building team in this week. What do you think, Marsh?
I definitely agree with you there. Like I said with Kolpa and the Fairy team earlier, I'm gonna call it as I see it, especially this week with this ground type team. They haven't really been building well in the past weeks, to be blunt. And like this match this week, I don't really think they have a chance between things like the Jellicent, the Gourgeist, the Scarf Gengar with Energy Ball is huge against all of his team, other than maybe the Landorus, which is going to have a heavy burn with the rest of the Mons on his team. And as you'd mentioned, the Mega Sableye is going to do a lot of work. And even definitely an underdog in this match, I think, this week is going to be this Runegregas. Because if you look at the ground type team, they really don't have anything for it. And if they do, it's physical. And we're looking at Runegregas, a common set that is run, and I think could be definitely utilized this week especially, is an Iron Defense body press set. Because if you look at the ground type team, they have two steel types in Mega Steelix and Excadrill. They have the rock type in Rhyperior, which all is super effective against. And the only thing it really isn't super effective or like good damage is Landorus. And that's, again, a lot of pressure to be riding on that Landorus. I don't think things like the Jellicent he'll be able to conquer and overcome. So because of that and a couple other like coach decision regions and stuff that I haven't gone into, I went with 2-Bit.
I agree with both of you. I also went with the Mount Silver Weaviles. I think he's I agree with what Rewt said. I think this is just the better team, and I think just taking a look at the records kind of proves that. I mean, we're all for like people being novices and like starting out, but I think that 2-Bit has the more battle experience. He has the more
knowledge.
He has the more knowledge of his team and what it can do over the PS2 Bolt Strike. And for that reasons, I'm going with the Mount Silver Weaviles. But it does look like the fans again agreed with us, 9-4, the same as the first two matchups, that the Mount Silver Weavile are going to win.
Mm-hmm.
Next up, we have the Arizona Arceus, the water type team, versus the Carolina Crush Claw, the CCC, the steel type team. Marsh, what do you think about this matchup?
In my mind, I was looking forward to this matchup, and then looking into it further and doing my damage calcs and stuff, I kind of hate this matchup because the steel type team and the water team here have been really unpredictable, and the coaching decisions have been, frankly, fairly poor in recent weeks. And I really, there's a lot of good plays and good strategies that both teams can bring in, but it's hard to tell and judge if they will or not because of how they've built in previous weeks. Like, you can bring in the Kling Clang with Shift Gear and Wild Charge. That's going to do major damage, but he hasn't used the Kling Clang yet, and I doubt he will really. And his team is fairly weak to water in general, with things such as the Bastiodon, the Heatran, the Steelix. And I feel like if the Blastoise gets a Shell Smash up with Surf, Earthquake, and Focus Blast, stuff like that, mixed attacker is going to do a lot of work. And Dracovish with Earthquake and Low Kick and stuff. I feel like the water team has more weapons that can't really be overlooked. And I went with Chris before, and he kind of let me down a little bit. But I hate to say it, but I'm going to go with the water type team this week and put some of my trust in Chris that he pulls this out against the steel team. Rewt, thoughts?
Yeah, for me, it kind of goes back to a few things that I've kind of thought in the past about this water type team. A lot of these matchups, I'm seeing a door that's close to wide open for Dracovic. I mean, as close to wide open as doors can be. I think Dracovic has not really been put in the strongest positions to kind of go through teams as much as it seems to be capable of. But this does seem like a really strong matchup for it to kind of do a lot of what it needs to do. I think even this steel type team kind of struggles with things like the talk specs. And I know you mentioned Watts Arch Klinklang, which of course is really strong, but things like the Seismitoad uh, help counteract that quite a bit. I think there's a lot of different interesting things that this water type team can do, and in truth, the steel type team was one of the drafts that I critiqued the most.
Mhm.
And I believe they are yet to find a win in this season.
Yep.
And Arizona does have one throughout the season, so there's that. We will see how that record advantage goes.
Well,
But
sorry to interrupt, but just to point out, the CCC, the SEAL team, did win last week against the Poison team, so they do have a win under their belt.
right,
They're
right,
both
forgive
the
me,
same record.
right, forgive me. So, but yeah, like I said, even without the whole advantage in records, I think um again, it comes down to the steel type team kind of being one of my most critiqued ones. I don't think that they covered their own weaknesses as well as they could have. And I just think this Arizona team has a lot of offensive presence here. Too much potentially for this steel type team to kind of manage. What do you think, Jackson?
This was actually kind of a hard decision on my end, just because I don't think that these teams are being played to their best ability. So
I 1000% agree.
I don't really know how this could go, and that's my opinion. I'm not trying to like throw shade at any coach or anything. It's just my opinion.
Mhm.
Um, but I do have the Arizona Arceus edging out a win over the Carolina Crush Claw here. Um, I agree with Rewt, and he's the offensive presence is there, and I think that certain coaching mistakes will lead to the win here. And not necessarily the Pokemon, but maybe some coaching styles will lead to a win or a loss here. And so for that reason, I'm going with the Arizona Arceus. And now here is the interesting thing. I don't know how to explain this, but the fan interaction, it's tied. So how are we going to do that? Are we going to go win, loss, tie? Or like, I don't know how we're
Well,
going to rate
we,
that.
for
Yeah, I
right
don't think we
now, we
had a
might just give it to the end of the week before the actual results come out and then see what the score is then. But
sure.
as of now, we might put a tie onto the record.
Okay. But moving on, we have the Green Bay Pikachus, the flying type team, versus the Scarlet City Sizor, the psychic type team. Brute, what do you have for this matchup?
Yeah, so again, this psychic type team was one of the teams that I did have some issues with coming out of the draft, and obviously the Green Bay Pikachu's is undefeated. They were a unanimous one vote for all of us coming out of the draft. I do think
Mhm.
that even just looking at it now, even after a little bit of shuffling in terms of team changes, I do think that the Green Bay Pikachu's are still in so many ways the stronger raw draft. And Jacob is a really creative builder. He's come up with so many different things. He's overcome direct type disadvantages, and he knows kind of how to maneuver this team. And ultimately, I think they have more offensive presence, more defensive presence, just more versatility, more to offer in this kind of psychic type matchup than I think this like type team can kind of manage. So I'm gonna go with this Green Day Pikachu's team to take this win. What do you think, Marsh?
I definitely agree. One of the things I looked at initially and still think is a very prevalent thing is that for the team building, all the entire draft for Jacob can be run against a psychic type team well and with like good success. Between I think some major standouts are going to be the Mega Aerodactyl with Crunch, the Dark Pulse on Thundurus, the Mandibuzz especially, even just like a toxic and knockoff set with how bulky it is and being immune to the psychic stab, as well as Celesteal with like Leech Seed and stuff, which has put work in the past. I don't feel like the psychic type team has enough weapons on their side to pull out this win. Because yes, they do have some ice beams and thunderbolts and stuff, but a lot of those moves that are on those mons, they're meant to be bulky mons and don't really have enough attack to kill and maybe one-shot kill mons before they die themselves. So for that reason, and because Jacob is such a good coach and did a really good job drafting his team compared to this psychic type team and Erica, who had a little weaker draft, I went with the flying type team this week.
I agree with you guys. I'm going with the Green Bay Pikachus, the flying type team. And you mentioned this a little bit earlier, but I based the decision about him possibly bringing the Mega with Crunch, Mega Aerodactyl with Crunch. And I also agree with you. That was a bunch of my decision, bringing the Mandibuzz, because they can't really touch it besides using a fairy type move. But a big instigator of what made me choose it is that we've talked about it in the past. We just brought it up. The psychic type team doesn't really have that much offense. They don't have enough offense. They are very much a setup team, and sometimes you need to have just that raw strength to take down something that you just need to be taken down that you can't set up for. And I think they lack that severely. So for that reason, I'm going with the Green Bay Pikachus. And it looks like overwhelmingly the fans. This is the biggest gap of the week, 12-3. That the fans are also going with the GBP, the flying type thing. What do you guys think about the fan?
Rewt?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think they are going with the team that has the most momentum here. I think a lot of the momentum from the draft up to this point has always been with Jacob, and that's what a lot of the community is looking at right now.
Something before we move on, I wanted to put out there and kind of say, because I have noticed it in the past weeks, but especially transparent now, how the top of the leaderboards overall in this league itself has been very geared towards power, just straight up, a lot of versatility, power teams with examples such as this flying team, Demo's fire type team, firepower, haha, the bug type team, the dragon team. That's a lot of strong mons compared to a lot of teams that are on the bottom are more geared towards setup and get some things going and then be able to sweep and overwhelm the other team, but they can't get them up because of the teams that are in the higher tier and higher position in this league.
That'll be interesting to see going forward if that is the case at the end of the league as well. But last but not least, we have the Chicago Kyurem, the poison type team, versus the New York EXCELPIKAS, the fighting type team. Now, Rewt, what do you think about this matchup?
All right, yeah. Let me take another sip of Red Bull because I'm ready to argue with this one.
I am too. Let's get down to it.
Yeah, no.
Please,
Okay, no, seriously. This was one of the most difficult matchups for me because up until very recently, I couldn't imagine a way that this fighting type team could lose. Because I think the big thing that can turn the match is this Mega Gallade. I think this Mega Gallade can kind of 6-0 on its own, or dang close to it. But if it gets to +4, then this poison type team is going to really struggle against it. And Cress has shown in the past that whenever this Gallade hits the field, one of the first things she tries to do with it is get a Swords Dance up. And Swords Dance is just devastating against this poison type team. I have run some calcs, and it does look like this Beedrill is kind of in a difficult position against it because no matter how fast this Beedrill is, it looks like even just a moderate amount of bulk, and the Shadow Sneak still takes it out after Stealth Rocks, depending obviously on how much bulk the Beedrill ends up having, but even just a moderate amount of bulk isn't enough to kind of prevent it from going down after rocks to a +2 Shadow Sneak. And just other than that, a lot of different threats on the EXCELPIKAS side. However, I think that the thing that can turn this entire match around is this Crobat here. Now, Marsh and I talked a decent amount in our pregame banter, if you want to call it that,
Oh, we'll say
uh,
banter.
about a bunch of different Crobat sets, and I personally really like a Specs Crobat here. I think a Nasty Plot Crobat is really valid here. Um, I think he was advocating for even a banded Crobat, and I think there are a lot of different Crobat sets here that work. But I truly believe that a really strong Crobat with a really strong flying spam here is just too difficult for this fighting type team to kind of manage. Now, again, the big caveat here is that Gallade can reverse sweep a team on its own. It can just take on this entire team on its own. But I think the best ways of kind of managing that is going to be the Naganadel and the Crobat together. I think they can kind of pull something off here. And if the Gallade is out of the way, then I think the door is even more wide open for this Crobat to just come in and out. Even if you need to switch in and out for this kind of poison type team to take hits from this fighting type team, I think just this Crobat can slot in, get a really strong air slash off, and then get out. And if this poison type team can keep up that offensive pressure long enough, I don't see how this match can be lost. So what do you think, Marsh?
I kind of want to think about this more in a little bit, so I'm going to take it over to Jackson for now. I'll come back. It'll probably be one of the longest segments in this week, but
Oh man, I'm excited now.
it's contested. Jackson, what are your thoughts?
Okay, listen to you guys talk. Listening to you guys talk, I can only think of the meme. You guys know like the money printer machine? No, you can't print money. Money machine
Yeah.
go brr. It's like,
Yeah.
no, you have to do calculators. Haha, Pokemon go brr. That's you guys. Are the
Pokemon
meme.
looks good. I like it. Let's go.
That's essentially me. But no,
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Just like one other thing. I believe that I think one of the best things that this poison type team can have to kind of take on the Gallade and not have it just like Zen headbutted like to 6 other team is the Drapion, and I think it even goes down to like a +2 close combat. That's all I wanted to say. I did a calc, so I wanted to share it. Go ahead, go on.
No, it's all good. But yeah, I'm
Raycon Gallade. Can you work against that Drapion?
I'm going with the Chicago Cure and the poison type team. I'm going this way because. Hold on one sec. I'm trying to think. Oh, I'm going. That meme's stuck in my head. But no, I'm going that way because I think that well, yes, the New York EXCELPIKAS does have the Mega Gallade, and that can do a ton of damage to the Chicago Curums. I just think that with the amount of flying power they have with Crobat and Nanagale, Nanagale gets Air Slash, right?
Yes, it does.
Okay, but I think that they can. They have enough firepower to take down the fighting type team. Plus, fighting's resistant on poison type, correct? Am I right or am I wrong?
Let me check that real quick. It is resisted. It is resisted.
Okay, so
Poison
for that reason, I'm going with Chicago Kyurem. Do you want me to go to talk about the fans pick them before you go into your stuff?
No, I think I'm okay.
Okay, you have the floor.
I'm so excited.
I'm not. I'm about to get flamed in the comment section. Please go easy on me. Okay. So this is probably the toughest matchup for me this entire season, and probably in a lot of the analyzing I've done over the years. And the reason for that is because yes, the poison type team does have weapons in the Crobat. With I think Brave Bird is the better decision for me, or because of that attack stat and the 120 base power of Brave Bird. That's our disagreements there, Rewt. But I also feel like Haunter is a sleeper on this team. Its special attack stat is still really, really good. It's immune to that fighting stab, so you can switch it in really well. It has Levitate for the ground type because Komodo, Terrakion, and Gallade and such can get massive earthquakes off that can do a lot. However, with the Levitate, as well as it's so versatile on the attacking side between moves like Dazzling Gleam, Psychic, Shadow Ball, HP Flying, with a speed stat fairly high, and you can Scarf it or Specs it. I feel like against a moderately mid-speed tier fighting team, it can do a lot of work. And as you guys have both mentioned, the Gonadel is definitely a huge threat with that Air Slash, and even a Draco Meteor, as well as maybe even getting a Tailwind off for some of the other slower mons on the team. But other than that, the team kind of falls off. Yes, it has the Wheezing. It might have the Roserade or the Tentacruel that can do some work with Dazzling Gleam or Leech Seed and Rapid Spin, stuff like that. But I feel like the fighting team, not only with the Mega Gallade, the Mega Gallade can do work, having both weaknesses for poison on its set, as well as being fairly fast, and having the Sword Stance capability. If it gets set up, it can do a lot of work, as was mentioned, with Zen Headbutt, Earthquake, Close Combat. But it's not just the Gallade on the fighting type team. The Infernape with just a fake out, and it can go Sword Stance itself. After running Calyx and stuff, with attack investment, after a fake out and an Earthquake, it one-shots just about everything other than maybe obviously the Crobat and the Haunter, and then maybe a very bulky Weezing or so. And if the Weezing doesn't have Levitate, that is, of course. And like the Komodo also, with if it gets off a Clangorous Soul with +1, basically an Omni boost, it can do a lot of work with Earthquake itself, or just a Clang Scales on the Crobat or the Haunter with Levitate. Terrakion, just you can Scarf it with Earthquake. You can get a Stab Stone Edge on the Crobat off. You can get a Zen Headbutt off on the Haunter. It does a lot of work. Keldeo for the bulk if you need, for the special attack. I definitely feel like this fighting team and the poison type team have very good matchups against each other. I would go with the poison type team, and I kind of am leaning towards it now. But Quillen, I don't know how much he has experience with this team, because he did come into the season late and he only got a couple trades. And other than those trades, this isn't really his team at all. So I feel like between his unpredictable playing style that I haven't really seen work well, especially in last week, it kind of didn't go his way, and I feel like it could have definitely gone his way. And Cress is a pretty good battler, and she is not doing so well as she could with record-wise, because her first weeks were very, very hard, having to face the Dragon team, the Fire team, and the Bug team, who are all 3-1 and very high in differentials. I feel like this week and further on is her point to make a statement and say, hey, I'm in this league. I'm going to get that third spot if I really can, or second even, and come for that playoffs, that championship spot if I can, and get some revenge on those teams that beat me in the Fire and the Dragon and so on. Thinking about this though, if the Crobat does work and the Haunter and the Gondel can as well, I feel like the Poison type team can pull this off. I was going with the Fighting type team earlier on in this, and I still think I'm going to regret it moving forward later on. But I'm going to say the Poison type team. Screw it.
Ooh.
Ooh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
What a
Okay.
twist.
Okay. Can I say two things? And
Go ahead.
and before I even do that, just to get it out of the way, the community pick was with the Poison type team. It was about a 2-1 margin. I believe a lot of that might just be they tried up type disadvantage because of the Fighting type team, and just
But you also
the fact that Poison does seem to have a lot more type variety. But go ahead.
I was just going to say that as well as the Bug type team, Fighting was naturally resisted by the Bug type team, and I mean that kind of played off, which can also happen here. I was just going to add that in. Go ahead.
Okay, but now with that out of the way, two things. One, no matter what happens now, because like again, you guys will never hear it, but in our pregame banter, he was so sure about this Fighting type team that even the fact that I made him like pause and second guess himself, I already count this as a win. I already won this week. I don't care what happens anymore.
Fair enough.
Just because of what just happened, I already count this as a total win. Okay.
If you think about the analyst who doesn't have a better record than the fans, maybe has in mind of someone who has the leader or the record.
And second thing was this was partially designed to kind of be like my catch-up pick, because for so much of this week, I definitely did think that the Fighting type team could win, because again, I truly believe that if Crest can find her spots, that this Gallade can 6-0 the team on its own. I think it is.
Honestly, even without the Gallade on the team, I feel like she can still have a 50-50 chance of winning.
Sure, Sure, but I think the Glade on its own is kind of like this wild card that makes this
Yeah,
matchup
I agree.
really interesting to me. But this was kind of designed to be like my catch-up pick, where I thought that if I dissented from you two and the poison type team wins, that I can get a point back in the standings. But but you guys all
You know
agree
what?
with me.
You know
So
what?
now I
Screw
think
it. Screw it. No. Okay. Like with that and everything, I can't disagree with everyone. I have to stick with my guns. I have to go with my gut here. I feel like the fighting type team has this in the bag. I'm
This is delved
I'm
into
going with the fighting type
chaos.
team to be different as well. Yes, has delved into chaos. I also might want to go over the fairy and dark type matchup because I feel like the dark type team was not given enough credit there. But by the way, this is being recorded at 12:30 in the morning for me and 1:30 in the morning for Rewt. Just keep
Yes.
that in mind. I might be going a little crazy.
It's only 10:26 for me. I'm good.
Yeah, you're
And-
PFG. All right.
and I am full of Red Bull at this point, so keep
Yes,
that in mind.
that too. I'm screwed. I'm going with the fighting type team. I am 3 ahead of Jackson, and I don't think I can catch up. So I'm going with the fighting type team. Further my lead, as you were saying, be different than everyone else. Get my record up a bit. Going for the fighting type team. I'm changing it.
Well-
fighting type team. Gallade,
Well,
Infernape, Komodo, Dracan. Let's go.
well, like I was saying before, whether or not you changed your mind, even the fact that I made you second guess
Yeah.
it, I already counted that as a win. Like that pause, as soon as you said, as soon as you threw it over to Jackson to think about it for another second, I already counted that as a win for the week. So
Mhm.
so I'm super excited. This 0% of this went how I thought it would, but I'm excited about it.
Jackson, any word? You've been pretty silent since the
Uh,
whole.
I just like see you guys talk about this, calcs
Have that
and
go burr in your mind.
puns and like meme Pokemon go burr. But with that being said, these are our picks. We hope
Crowback over.
Crowback go
Crowback
burr.
burr.
But
Sounds
we love
really
to
weird.
see your guys' picks. So go
Yes,
down to the
yes.
Discord. Click the link. Join our
And-
community. Go right ahead, Luke.
Sorry, I was just gonna say, and not just because Crowbat's my mascot. Go ahead.
Okay, well now that gives me some more insight. So that's why I go with the poison type team here and reliance on the Crobat so much. All right.
But thank
Sorry,
you guys for
move on.
watching. Click the links down below. Leave a like, subscribe. Leave us a comment what you thought of our picks. So we will see you next week for another episode of our pick'ems. So goodbye, everyone.
Have a good one. Bye.
See you guys next week.